What's up, everybody, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Between the Cons. My name is Chris, and with me today, the Ginger Giant. I muted you.
Yeah, I didn't give it my all.
I actually don't know if I muted you, because it doesn't look like I muted you.
I wasn't really feeling. If it wasn't good, just leave it
The
out.
Ginger Giant. That one was more painful. Yeah, that's better. I think that during your intro, I have to wince a little bit, or else it's a
laughing.
half effort. Yeah.
Oh yeah, me doing these is like no energy. If I were to really get into this,
I don't want you to.
I'm a very loud person.
I know you are. Anyways, thanks for tuning into the show today. We're going to be talking about the Oscar nominations here in just a minute. But before we do, follow us on the internet. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Between the Cons. And leave a review on iTunes, on the podcast app over there for the internet to see and to read and to enjoy. Us to enjoy. Yeah. But we're going to jump into Oscar nominations. So sit tight. We'll be right back. So the Oscar nominations were announced.
Yes.
Which is what we're here to talk about today. The 90th Annual Academy Awards. It's going to be really interesting. There are a lot of good titles up for grabs.
Yep.
And there are a lot of repeat titles, which you don't see super often.
Right.
But you do see, you'll see, one title getting nominated for, a handful of different categories. But, Shape of Water, crushing it.
Such a good movie. So deserving.
13
nominations.
13 nominations.
And we were talking about before the show about how it's a sci-fi movie.
It's a sci-fi movie.
It's a sci-fi movie nominated for that many awards. And I was trying to think back to something comparable. And I'm sure there have been other movies since then. But Return of the King, it's not like a sci-fi. It's a fantasy movie.
It's fantasy, right.
It got nominated for whatever it was, 12, 13 ones. But that's the most recent sort of comparable situation.
Within our fandoms.
Sure.
Yeah.
12 years ago or however long ago it was.
But it's interesting because it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Sci-fi is making a huge splash because not only just Shape of Water. Let me say this first. Shape of Water is Guillermo del Toro.
Yes.
He could make whatever he wanted and it would probably get Oscar nominated. Yeah. Because he is fantastic. And he doesn't do work. He's not a Nicolas Cage of the director world. He does not do work if he does not.
He's not
fully
putting
stand
something
behind
out.
a project.
Yeah, he doesn't put something out every 3 years.
Right.
He's not working on a project all the time.
Right.
He puts material out he cares a lot about.
Yeah. Pan's Labyrinth, Lady in the Water. Lady in the Water was M. Night Shyamalan. Never mind. Pan's Labyrinth.
The other one
there was Hellboy. Hellboy 2.
Hellboy, yeah.
Hellboy and Hellboy 2 were probably the quickest he's turned around.
Right.
But it was sequential. It was like a it was a series, so it makes sense. And we saw that suffer in Hellboy 2 because it just wasn't as good.
Sure. Yeah.
I want to call
Blade
it the
2
Golden
was the
Circle,
other one that he did.
but it's not that.
Yeah, Blade 2 was the one I was thinking about.
Right. Yeah. But really, really cool to see sci-fi on there. Really interesting thing about this year, and we'll talk about it here in just a second, but the first superhero movie ever nominated for an Oscar was nominated this year, and we'll talk about which one that is here shortly. But first, we're going to run through a couple things that we just want to talk about. A few, these should win.
Absolutely. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Chris and the Ginger Giant say these should win. We're going to skip Best Picture because it's too much.
Yeah.
Best Director. I think Best Director, leaving out a ton of criteria, and from my opinion, at least, Jordan Peele for Get Out.
Yep.
Get Out is a satirical horror movie. frankly based in like white culture.
Yeah.
To put it in like the most generic terms. It was very preachy,
Sure.
but it was very good.
Yeah.
It was the movie we needed as a culture, but it was also a movie that was well done enough that even if you're like, I don't like preachy movies, it was still a fantastic movie.
Right. And if you didn't see it, I haven't seen it yet and really
Right.
have wanted to see it. But if you didn't see it, everybody falls into one camp or two camps, one of two camps. Either you saw it or you were like me who didn't see the trailer.
Right.
But then maybe you were on Rotten Tomatoes and you saw this movie do really well.
Right.
And the next week, twice the amount of people went and saw it.
Right.
And there were articles.
And everyone's talking about it.
There were news, like Twitter was blowing up about it.
Yeah.
Everyone was talking about how good of a movie Get Out was.
Yeah.
And there was always this little like, it's a horror film. Like, why is it doing so well as a horror film?
Right.
And as more people started to talk about it, it has that satirical aspect to it.
Oh, for
which
sure.
kept bringing people to the theater.
Yeah.
Which I think is a mark of a really good movie.
Yeah.
People wanted to go
Well,
back and
it is
see it multiple times.
It is a comedy to an extent.
Yeah.
It's not like Scary Movie.
Yeah.
It's not a like satire horror comedy.
Right, yeah.
But it's a satire horror movie that has comedy in it. But Jordan Peele crushed it with Get Out. And I think the reason I think he should get Best Director is because he made a movie that we've never seen before.
Yep.
Like other movies that are nominated, Dunkirk, war movie. Bleh. Like how many war movies have we seen?
And honestly, not a Best Picture. I mean,
Yeah.
if
it's Christopher Nolan. So I have not finished Dunkirk. I started it, but it's Christopher Nolan. He's an outstanding director.
Right.
He made a beautiful film.
Sure.
But it's not worthy of being Best Director.
No.
Lady Bird, Teenage Girl Problems, like in the most vague and generalized description for that movie.
Right.
Teenage Girl Problems, Phantom Thread. Honestly, I have never heard of this movie. I don't even know what it is.
Right.
The Shape of Water, fantastic movie. Guillermo del Toro crushed it, but he made another Guillermo del Toro movie.
Yes.
Like
there wasn't
Peele,
anything like directorially different for him or for the atmosphere
Right.
of moviegoers
Right.
from that movie. Like,
Right.
again, fantastic film.
Right.
But if you're going on what is the best directorial effort,
right. He
Get Out.
made a movie we've never seen before. Jordan Peele
Yep.
deserves Best Director.
Yeah.
Just quick on Best Actress. I talked about it on Golden Globes, how I felt like Sally Hawkins got totally robbed by Frances McDormand. Sally Hawkins got totally robbed. In The Shape of Water, she plays a mute character. Her performance is mind-blowing.
Impeccable.
To have that kind of handicap. She should have won a Golden Globe.
We talked about it on Tuesday. The last show, whatever day it is today,
Thursday.
Thursday. I mentioned like how much emotion she was able to communicate without words. She
Yes.
has this deep longing to feel connection with someone.
Yeah.
And she finds it in this quote unquote non-humanoid. Like it's not a man or a woman that she's finding this connection
Right.
with. It is a quote unquote other.
A fish man.
A weapon, like that. A lot of
Right.
people are referring to it like, but it's not just that. That character is deep and wants to feel connection.
Yeah.
And the moment that she's explaining it to her roommate, and she does the hand signals for togetherness.
Yeah. Oh
it's
my
like,
gosh.
Oh, that's what
Crushed.
that's what you thought. If you didn't have those words in your head when you're watching it, that's what you know she's been wanting.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's your chance at redemption, Sally Hawkins. We're all pulling for you.
Yep.
Skipping Best Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Best Supporting Actor, Best Original Screenplay. I'm just going to say Get Out again. It's a movie we've never seen before.
Right.
It deserves it.
And I'll make a little bit of a different plug just to talk about a different movie. The Big Sick.
I have not seen it, but I love the guy that plays in that movie.
Kumail.
Yeah,
I can't remember his last name.
Kumail Nanjiani.
It's weird that he didn't get nominated for Best Director because he also directed it.
Right.
Which the story is incredible. Like it's crazy that was actually like a real thing that happened. This is his love story with his wife.
Right.
Who gets sick and he gets to know her parents while they're in the hospital. They've broken up at this point. There's so much emotion there that, I mean, he's bringing forth emotions he's already felt, right?
Right.
And anyway, I thought it was incredible.
I haven't seen it yet, but I do love him. He's in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
I love him as an actor.
And it's a very different,
but I haven't seen the movie.
There's a ton of humor in it.
Right.
It is not Silicon Valley humor. It is Silicon Valley. He's the sort of like he's the nerd. I mean, he's a nerd in the movie.
He's the one that everyone picks on.
Yeah, he's the one that everybody picks on. It's not, that is more like, the only term in my head is like gross out humor. There's just a lot of like weed and cussing and gross out humor, quote unquote.
Right.
I'm not coming up with a better term for it than that. The Big Sick is more just situational about what it's like to be from a family from India or Pakistan, excuse me, and being in New York, and what it's like to fall in love with a white woman, and what it's like to feel real tension between your family of origin and who you want to be your family.
Right.
So good.
Yeah. Well, I definitely want to see that one. I haven't yet, but it is it's for sure on my list. It's
Very
just
enjoyable.
Haven't gotten around to it yet. Best adapted screenplay. This is the one. This is the one, boys and girls. Our time has come. The first superhero movie ever to be nominated for an Oscar is Logan. Screenplay by Scott Frank, James Mangold, and Michael Green. Story by James Mangold. Best adapted screenplay. If this was like the Teen Choice Awards and we could vote, you bet your sweet britches I would be voting every day.
Yep.
Because, but we can't. It's the Academy.
Yeah.
But this is the time to shine. I really, really, really hope Logan really locks this one down. Frankly, it's the only movie in the Best Adapted Screenplay category that I've seen.
The others in that category are, I think, probably what you would call like Oscar sweethearts.
Yeah,
like they're sort of written for the Oscars. Like Call Me by Your Name is about a homosexual relationship, and it's, that is not disparaging to call it an Oscar, but the Academy loves that story, right?
Right.
And so again, it's a little bit like we've.
Right.
I haven't seen the film, but it is that type of thing we've seen before.
Yeah, and I know that Molly's Game that was the one like critique that I heard of it. Is it's a movie that was written to win awards,
and it's Sorkin, right? It's West Wing type banter,
right?
And it's his long shots,
right?
And I also haven't seen it yet, and I want to see it. I've heard really good things about it, and I'm sure it's going to do really well. But again, written for the audience. Mudbound is a little bit that way.
Yeah.
And it not ironically, but to say something special about that. It has the first woman cinematographer to be nominated for an Academy Award,
right?
Which is great. Rachel Morrison, I think is her name, and I'll root for her.
No relation.
She's got my last name. We're not related at all, but that's great. And then the last one is The Disaster Artist.
Don't care.
Which should
not be
so much conversation
anywhere
around it, and like that feels a little bit like a joke, right? I mean,
yes.
I don't know. I haven't seen it, but
yeah,
anyway.
I cared so little to see that movie that I haven't even watched a trailer for it. I know the premise. I'm aware of the premise. I have no desire to see it. Skipping over Best Foreign Language Film, Best Animated Feature, Best Documentary Feature, and Best Cinematography, we're going to jump, and Best Film Editing. We're going to jump into Best Sound Mixing, just because this is a personal favorite for me and Kyle.
Oh, yeah.
But the nominees are Star Wars The Last Jedi, Shape of Water, Dunkirk, Blade Runner 2049, and the one that we both want to win, Baby Driver.
Oh my gosh! Please
When
win.
you choreograph car chase scenes with pop songs, you win an Oscar. Like that should be a direct correlation.
I think we talked about it. I mean, I think I talked about it several months ago, and it's been the story around this movie ever since it came out, that they choreographed every scene, chases, like moments when he's sitting in the car, conversations sitting at tables, to the music going on in the background.
Yes.
And they had to reshoot it. Every scene was choreographed.
Yeah.
They moved to beats. It's not kitschy. It's not,
Right.
they're not like dancing.
It doesn't feel like a musical.
It's not a musical.
Right.
It is the best sound mixed movie maybe I've ever seen.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And that is why it should win.
Yeah.
Like, even the scene at the beginning where it is kind of kitschy
Yes.
isn't that kitschy.
It's introducing you to what you're about to experience.
Well, he's like a 20-year-old dude.
And he's singing to a song,
And
right?
he's got his headphones in, he's singing, he's having a good time.
The other movies, the one I don't know that really fits there, honestly, is The Shape of Water. Like, it had cool sound.
Like, well, and there were some scenes where it was like in the tank room,
Sure.
where she would like bring records in and put records on, and like there was good sound mixing there because like they created the old sound of a phonograph.
Sure.
So that was neat.
When the bathroom filled up with water and they're underwater, right?
Yeah,
That
and
was
like the
cool
sound in there.
Yeah.
But it was Baby Driver.
Baby Driver is the clear winner there, in our humble opinions.
Best sound editing. So not sound mixing, sound editing.
Mm-hmm.
Baby Driver, again, it's actually the exact same list. Baby Driver, Blade Runner, Dunkirk, Shape of Water, Star Wars Last Jedi, which I didn't realize until just now. But that is hilarious.
That is hilarious.
It's like these movies obviously had good sound. But I would say Star Wars Last Jedi.
And I would agree.
Because so many sounds had to be created.
Yeah.
Like they had to, like you go back and listen to like the history of sound for Star Wars, and it's like they're taking live Tesla coils and like striking like copper pipes against them to get like lightsaber sounds.
Yeah.
Like they're doing that kind of stuff. And they're still doing that today.
Right.
Like they're not like creating fake sounds in programs. They're using live sound to create some of this stuff.
Right.
And it's crazy that they're still doing that.
And the scene to me in that, like, I can think of maybe individual scenes for each one of them, but the one that comes out to me as the like best edited scene is the explosion of the ship.
Oh, when
there's
it
all
goes
that
completely
sound.
quiet.
And then all of a sudden there's nothing.
Yeah.
Like it was chill bumps
in
the theater.
Oh yeah.
Like that is one of the coolest sound edited scenes I've watched.
And all they did was hit mute across the board.
Exactly, right? Hey, Baby Driver, there's cool stuff with the car and the music going together. And 2040, I actually haven't seen Blade Runner, weirdly.
2049 had some really impressive stuff.
Uh-huh.
It's very much the same. I think that sound editing is a category that goes to sci-fi. Like,
sure.
I fully believe that, or something that has a lot of generated sound.
Yeah.
Like Dunkirk, I can understand, but it's a war movie. Like, you're using the same tracks that everyone before you has used.
Yeah. Hearing where a plane comes overhead and whooshes over you, like, is cool still, right? It's still a cool thing. It's not really new.
But like Blade Runner 2049 had a lot because of the I want to say landscape. Because it's in the city, and then it's out in the middle of nowhere, and then it's in the city, and then it's in this giant open building, like really minimalist and all this. So like there's a lot to take into consideration there.
Yeah.
But I think that Star Wars had the most sound being created, being edited, that it worked.
Yep.
It worked very well. But I will stand behind my statement of best sound editing belongs to sci-fi forever. Other things that belong to sci-fi forever: best visual effects. Because if it's not sci-fi, it probably doesn't have a lot of visual effects. Which this one makes a lot more sense as far as the nominees, because they were really stretching it.
Yeah.
Because it's all sci-fi in some form or another. War for the Planet of the Apes. Those titles are getting super old.
Yeah.
Star Wars: The Last Jedi, Kong, Skull Island, Guardians Volume 2, and Blade Runner 2049. So this one, I believe, goes to Blade Runner. Because it had maybe not the most visual effects. Like Kong Skull Island
was all visual effects.
where you're creating a like 80-story tall giant gorilla. But I think that there were scenes in Blade Runner 2049 where like there's this one scene where he's walking back at night and there's this giant like magenta colored hologram woman, like 80 stories tall, and like he has this pink hue on him. And like she like bends down and is talking to him, but it's like a billboard. It's essentially like a Blade Runner billboard, but it's stuff like that. And then also in the very beginning where he's like flying his I keep calling it the DeLorean because it looked like a DeLorean,
Yeah.
but it wasn't. But he flies his DeLorean into this like farming town, and he lands down, and it's like you can't see for 10 feet. Like there's so much fog, and there's no way that was like actual effect. Like
Right.
there's no way that they created that on a farm for realsies.
Yeah.
And I think that was outstanding. I mean, it could be argued that any of these had great visual effects, but I think the most solidly done, especially with Blade Runner 2049 dealing so much with holograms and like his girlfriend was a hologram. And the way they did that, like went out in the rain and like the way that the rain was like piercing through the hologram, like those little details as compared to like the nose hair on a giant gorilla.
Yeah.
Like it means so much more to me.
I just think from Guardians, we've seen all of that before. Like,
sure.
It was most of it was on the planet.
Ego was beautiful.
But also like you could just really tell.
It was cartoony.
It was cartoony. And Kong, it was monsters. Great. You did a good job building monsters. That's sure. You got a nomination, but it wasn't. I don't think it's Oscar winning. Star Wars, I don't think it's anything new.
They didn't. The only thing in Star Wars that was like, for me, like breathtakingly great in terms of visual effects were like the crystal foxes.
Those are cool.
At the end, they looked amazing.
Yeah, and the sound going along with them actually.
They didn't look out of place.
Yeah.
They didn't look like they were like CGI'd on top of the screen. They looked amazing. And but that's the only thing that I would say like blew my mind.
Right. I think if to defend one other would just be War for the Planet of the Apes, simply because I think they've gotten really good at making the apes not look CGI.
Oh, for sure.
That they all look like characters in the movie.
Like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so again, haven't seen Blade Runner yet, but for those two stand out as far as like it looks like a world. It looks, they took things that needed to be created through visual effects and made them look normal.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And that's the last one that we really want to talk about. The last few categories: best makeup and hairstyling. I hope it goes to Gary Coleman personally for The Darkest Hour. Gary Coleman. Yes. Gary Oldman for The Darkest Hour, just because he looks well beyond his years. Best costume design, best production design, best original score, best original song. Nothing that I'm super vested in across any of those. Production design, I would say, is probably the biggest deal out of all those, but I feel like if you don't do production design, like I feel like there's a thumbs up or a thumbs down for production design. I don't feel like there's a scale for me personally.
Right.
And if you make a movie with a thumbs down, like, it doesn't get nominated for an Oscar.
Right.
Like, I don't know enough about prod design to say, like, this is good or this is bad.
Neither do I. And I'd say that's one that the Shape of Water might run away with, simply on the fact that it just looked immaculate.
Everything looked like the time period.
It looked like 1960s, late 50s, 60s.
50s-ish.
Yeah. And nothing was misplaced.
Right.
Everything was exactly where it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it all looked good.
Beauty and the Beast was CGI. Blade Runner, CGI. Sure.
CGI.
Cool.
But it looked good.
Darkest Hour probably does a good job. Again, I haven't seen it.
But I feel like Darkest Hour is like offices the whole time.
And I think Dunkirk could have been, honestly, I think it could have been cooler as far as production design.
Yeah.
Like it's a beach and ships.
Right.
And those are cool things, but I don't know that anything really original or that it was done the best.
It was outstanding in any particular fashion.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, for me, it's a thumbs up or thumbs down. So I don't have enough to throw that one way or the other.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I think that's the Oscars coming to you. I believe they're in March, first week of March. March 4th?
4th.
ABC is going to be broadcasting on March 4th, which is a Sunday evening.
Month and a half from now.
Sunday evening. Month and a half from now. So stay tuned. I'm sure we'll see a lot of interesting things come around. Actually, one thing that I want to talk about before, because you and I talked about this, before we skip on to What's Your Jam, and very, very quickly, Wonder Woman was not nominated for anything.
Yep.
And Kyle and I both kind of came to each other before the show, and we were a little bit surprised. And then as we talked about it, it kind of fleshed out that like Wonder Woman was a great superhero movie. It was a great superhero movie. Despite the fact that we both loved it, it did not qualify on any grounds.
No.
For an Oscar.
No. She did a great job. It wasn't. She shouldn't be Best Actress.
No.
The set was good. It wasn't production design or visual effects.
Yeah, but it's like looking at who you're up against.
Yeah.
I don't think Gal Gadot outdid any of the gals up for gals. I didn't mean that. Any of the women up for Best Actress. I don't think Chris Pine did better than any of the guys up for Best Supporting Actor. I don't think it qualifies on any realm.
The only one that just popped into my head that I guess maybe could have made it would be director. Like there was a lot of conversation about how good of a job she did in directing. I can't remember her name. Sorry,
I knew you were going to say that. I was going to try and search it.
But
hold on.
Yep, we'll get there in a second.
Patty Jenkins.
Thank you. She did a fantastic job with the movie.
She did a great job. But did she do better than
the 5 that were nominated?
The 5 that were nominated. And that's the thing. It's what sample are you looking at?
Yeah.
Like, are you looking at Wonder Woman is arguably the best superhero movie we've ever gotten? Because I'll tell you, it's not the best superhero movie that is an adapted screenplay. Because the story from Logan blows the story from Wonder Woman out of the water every day of the week.
Every day of the week.
Every single day. Even if you take out the 2 previous movies, or 3 previous movies for Wolverine,
right,
it beats it every single time.
Yep.
This one, Wonder Woman, it just didn't cut it. It was the best superhero movie we've gotten for a franchise. But not better than, it's not a better story than Logan.
I'm just running through the other categories
it doesn't have better sound. It doesn't have a better actors.
Supporting actress, no.
The screenplay would be adapted, but like I said, not better than Logan. Cinematography, maybe, because some of the cinematography was really on point.
Some of it was cool, but it also that wasn't like a big deal. Like it was old London.
Right, but is
And
it
it
better than
was-
Blade Runner, Darkest Hour, Dunkirk, Mudbound, or Shape of Water? No. And that's the thing. So just to touch on that before we
Yeah.
move off from the Oscars, when the conversation comes up of why did Wonder Woman get snubbed? It didn't get snubbed. It just couldn't hang.
It couldn't hang, but also, I mean, I think it's probably, it is worth mentioning because it was such a fantastic movie. Like,
It was,
looking
yeah.
back on the movies of 2017, I think it's worth mentioning that it was one of the best movies of the year.
I would say that it is an honorable mention. It is probably like 6th place
On several of
on
these.
a majority of these. Like, Best Actress. Gal Gadot, she didn't beat out Sally Hawkins. She didn't beat out Frances McDormand. I just watched I, Tonya this weekend. She for dang sure didn't beat out Margot Robbie.
Right.
I am a huge Margot Robbie fan, but
Even considering
She-
that she did the movie 3 months pregnant. Like, she did a
Right,
Like
yeah.
That's part of the story, and I think
Right.
part of why there is some swell towards her. Like, look what she did.
Yeah.
Given her
For Gal Gadot-
situation, like.
for Gal Gadot, I would love to see her in Best Actress, only to take the place of Meryl Streep, because I think Meryl Streep is the most overrated actress of all time. But that is a personal opinion. Because
And
I
The
don't.
Post just feels like a movie that was
I
written for this.
I don't think that she's I don't think Meryl Streep is a good enough actress to have as many awards as she has. And I think Gal Gadot, without having seen The Post, I think Gal Gadot did a better job than Meryl Streep did, because Meryl Streep overacts everything, in my opinion. But that is me being super biased.
Opinions.
But anyways, let's stop talking about the Oscars. Let's start talking about some jams.
What's your jam?
Hey, Kyle. What's your jam?
My jam is like super adulty.
Please keep it PG.
That's weird. I subscribe to
Oh, man, you're going to talk about reading
beginning
again.
of this year. I subscribe to the Wall Street Journal, and lame. It feels really adulty, but I also feel better informed about a lot of stuff, and I like reading in the morning with a cup of coffee. It's really great. I'm gonna try to keep up with it this year. It's my jam. Hey, Chris.
I don't even know what to do with that.
One time your jam was like filing for insurance or something. Like it
That
was like this time last year. It's
Oh,
like,
it was probably that I had just finished filing my taxes.
yeah.
And my jam was, I'm glad that it's over.
Okay. All right. I see the difference.
It's very different.
I see the difference. Hey, Chris,
Yeah.
what's your jam?
I love that you just tried to compare your jam to me being excited to be done with an adulting thing.
I'm starting an adulting thing, and I'm excited about it.
My jam, I got a couple quick jams. First jam, my wife got me Spidey and Deadpool.
Cool.
Which is the first volume of the trades, Isn't It Bromantic? Which I'm really excited about. Occasionally, Michael Land will like just pick up a comic off my Amazon wish list, like a trade off my comics,
Yep.
Amazon wish list. There it is. Just cause.
That's awesome.
And like they'll come and I'll just be like, ah! And then like 2 months later,
Reading.
2 months later,
Reading.
I'll read it.
Reading.
Comics. Comics. What are we here for?
You poo-pooed my pineapple
You
point
poo-pooed.
like 2 days ago. 2 of my pineapple points for reading.
That's because you were bringing up news.
Nerdy things.
You were bringing up news that the news was you finished
That
a
a-
book.
That's not the
You
whole point.
you humble bragged your pineapple so hard.
I did do that. I deserved it.
So that's one. I'm really excited about it. Ever since that series came out, I've been really excited to read it, but I haven't. And frankly, it's just laziness. I just haven't picked it up. I subscribed to it and then come to find out accidentally unsubscribed to it from my pull list. So that really sucks because I really wanted to be able to collect that storyline. But I'm really excited to have the trade. Another thing I'm excited about is another comic book, but not for reading purposes. And I was actually showing you this earlier. I went to Wyoming a couple weeks ago, just for a weekend away with my wife, and we went to Bart's.
Yeah.
Which is it's like one of the flea market antique mall.
Sure. Yep.
People getting rid of all their junk in a booth.
Have their own little booth, yeah.
Yeah, they buy a booth and they put all the crap they don't want in it and hope other people will buy it. Well, this one had a box of comics for $1.50, and like everywhere from like late 80s to mid late 90s. Nothing new by any stretch of the imagination. But in there was an X-Force #1 still in the wrapper, with the Deadpool trading card.
Oh, nice.
That came with the that came with it off the newsstand when it was released, which is super cool. If you are a collector of comic books and you're out there, I know it's nothing to get super excited about right now. Right now, it's valued at like anywhere from $8 to $11. It's not necessarily considered grade worthy to a lot of people, but for me, I saw it as a huge investment because one, it was $1.50,
right?
And it's a #1 Marvel comic, which is like a #1 Marvel comic for $1.50 is like a steal anywhere. But this one, with Deadpool 2 coming out, we're getting introduced to Cable.
Yep. And
with the Cable introduction, unless Disney changes a lot of things, we're going to be seeing an X-Force movie. So for me, that I see that, and I see X-Force #1. Mm-hmm. It's #1 in a series that's about to become a movie franchise. It's still sealed. This comic book has never been opened. It has a perfect spine, which for anyone that collects comics, the spine is what kicks you in the teeth with your grade. Like that is the one thing that is borderline impossible to get a 10.0 out of because the spine is always creased. This one has never been unpackaged. The spine does have a tiny little section that is cracked, where the color is cracked, but it's not all the way down, which is huge. So I'm looking at a pretty high score on it, which I'm really excited about because I will be getting it graded because in like 5-10 years, assuming we get that X-Force movie, it's going to be super valuable. And then the last thing, that's a jam. And then my last jam, the third jam.
3 jams.
I got a lot of little jams.
Yeah.
Little baby jams.
Not a big jam like me reading the paper every day.
Right. Well, this one is actually kind of a big jam. It's been about 3 weeks. It's been 1 week. No.
Since you looked at me.
It's been probably like 8 or 9 months since the last time we played D&D.
Yes. Yes.
And we're starting D&D back.
For one co-host's reason.
2 weeks. Mr. Naughty decided to be super cool to go live in his in-laws' basement.
Yeah.
For like a few months. For like
major
over half a year.
shade being thrown your way,
yeah,
Mr.
Major shade.
Major shade.
But they finally moved back in town, and it was super unfortunate timing because we're playing an older campaign from the 80s called The Keep on the Borderlands. And in this campaign, I decided as Dungeon Master, when the Hermit was defeated by the adventurers, that whoever landed the killing blow would befriend the Hermits. I think it's a panther.
I think it is a panther.
So Jackie, Mr. Naughty wife, now has a sidekick panther
that has like abilities and stuff,
which has its own set of, like, if you play D&D, it has its own set of abilities. It has its own characteristics. It's a super cool thing. But that was the last time we played. And that was how we ended, like striking, like finishing blow on the Hermit. I give her, like, I do the like end of battle narration, give her the stats on her new panther, and everybody leaves. And we haven't played D&D since. And we're getting back together 2 weeks?
February 10th.
3 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
2.5 weeks.
Yes.
From right now.
From the time we're recording 2 weeks from when this comes out. I'm excited.
I'm so excited.
I'm super excited. I have a lot of homework to do because I haven't touched the books since Cole moved. Because it's just like, well, we'll play never, I guess. But I've got a lot of homework to do to catch myself back up. But hopefully we can actually get to the keep before this next
seasonal break.
Hopefully we can get a little bit more regular about it. But once again, all depends on Mr. Naughty List
And Mrs. Naughty List.
and Mrs. Naughty. That sounds worse.
Woo!
That sounds way worse.
Mrs. Jackie Batson.
Mrs. Jones. Yes, that's way better. But yeah, those are my jams. Comic, Dungeons and Dragons. That's what jams are supposed to be like.
So my wife and I, so maybe a better jam. Well, that's not really better at all. But we're doing these like monthly challenges where like we give up or take on something new every month.
The reason that you're not watching any of the TV shows that we talk about on the podcast?
Yeah. So
great,
the reason
yeah.
I'm like super behind is that this month we're not doing any TV or movies. So like I'm reading a ton more this month.
Yeah.
And so that's really that's nerdy too. And not better.
So what's your jam? Not being prepared to record the podcast.
Reading a lot.
Your jam is not being prepared. That is your jam.
That is my jam. Let's be honest. That's kind of my jam every time I come on this show.
Fair enough. But yeah, that's it for the show. That's it for the jams. It for the show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Check out our website, betweenthecons.com. You can follow us on social media. You can subscribe to the show. You can find ways to sponsor.
Finger guns.
Tune in on Thursday. We're going to be back. If you subscribe, we put out new episodes twice a week. We're going to be back on Thursday. It's going to be a good time. So you don't want to miss it.
Check us out.
Bye!
Sometimes you got to get it out.